I know you, I walked with you once upon a dream. Hello, my name is Kyla, and today we're doing something a little bit magical. So, welcome back to the Infinite Library. I'm a princess today. I've even got, and now you can't see it, but I do have full gown. And the reason for this is that we're going to be reading fairy tales, or more accurately, we're going to be reading retellings of fairy tales. So, little history about me. I love fairy tales, particularly retellings of fairy tales, particularly dark, twisted retellings of fairy tales. So I've been already just gathering books over the years anyway, and I'm just really in the mood to actually check some of these out. And yeah, so for this little vlog that I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to be reading all of these, but I have a stack of books that are all fairy tale inspired. And there are two that I definitely want to read, which was kind of what kicked off this blog idea for me. And the other ones are ones I'm going to try them out and see which ones I like of them. And I've got a whole range of fairy tales, so of course I've got Sleeping Beauty. But I've also got Snow White, I've got Beauty and the Beast. I have Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood. And a few others that kind of don't really fit in any specific one, but are just inspired by fairy tales. So, as I said, I love anything fairy tale wise. I love movies of fairy tales. Here are some of the ones that I adore. We've got A Cinderella Story, Once Upon a Time, that's a TV series, Descendants, Blood and Chocolate, not the best, but hey, Ever After, of course, Ella Enchanted, the book is better, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, Penelope, and then we've got other adaptations that we've had, such as Maleficent, such as just various things that are kind of inspired by the idea of fairy tales but take it in a totally different take. I love when they take the idea of the fairy tale, the idea of the characters and the message, and they just change it up and twist it up, whether they're modernizing it, whether they're looking at it through a different lens. And I just love seeing what they're gonna do with it, because it's just taking these old stories that you know so well and just seeing where you can take them. So I've obviously already read quite a number of books that do this kind of thing. I've read the original Ella Enchanted. I recently read the Malice and Misrule series, which is kind of based off Sleeping Beauty, only told from from the villain side, a little bit like Maleficent. I also love Angela Carter's twisted fairy tale things in the Bloody Chamber, and I still haven't read all of this the Lunar Chronicles series yet, but I remember reading Cinder ages ago and just loving that they decided to take a sci-fi steampunky take on the story. So that's what kind of inspired this whole thing. I was just in the mood to read a bunch of fairy tale stuff, maybe even watch a few movies I haven't got around to seeing yet. One of the books that I've got here does have a movie that I want to watch, and there are a couple of other movies that I might be interested in checking out throughout the course of this month. Into the Woods, maybe. And there's this Korean mystery kind of series or film, I think, based off Little Red Riding Hood, and they all just sound really fun. And yeah, I'm just in the mood to live my fairy tale life this month. So the plan is, I have this stack of books. There are two books that I'm definitely going to be reading, and they are Remesa a Fairy Tale by Radia Hafisa, and this is Indian-inspired takes on 3 different fairy tales. It's not very short, it's a middle grade, but it basically has takes on the 3 different fairy tales. So we have Remesa, which is based off Rapunzel, we have Cinderella, which is based off Cinderella, and we have Sleeping Sarah, which is based off Sleeping Beauty. It's actually a middle grade book, so we have a couple of pictures here and there, and it's probably going to be quite a quick read. But I just found this in Waterstones, funnily enough, in the clearance section, and it was it was meant to be. And I was just so inspired from then to kind of just see other takes, and I'm really excited to see what the Indian takes on these fairy tales are going to be. And the other book that I'm going to definitely be reading throughout this vlog is an anthology. So I'm kind of going to be reading it like amongst other ones. So it is Cursed, which is edited by Maria Regan and Paul Kane. And Maria Regan did the In These Hallowed Halls, like Dark Academia one, which came out last year, I believe. And I didn't even know this was a thing until I was just looking at like various fairy tale sort of retelling books that were out there, and I came across this, and this is my vibe totally, because I love dark takes on things. So this has a whole bunch of different fairy tale inspired stories by a bunch of different authors. So we've got Neil Gaiman, we've got Christina Henry, we've got Christopher Golden. There's a bunch of authors I've never read from before, so that is going to be fun as well. But I think in total there are 20 short stories in this book. There's also a sequel that came out, I think, last year, but I decided just to pick up the first one for now. But it's really cool that like it got another anthology series. As expected, these are sort of like more twisted takes on these fairy tales. So at the back it says, "It's the prick of blood, the bite of an apple, the evil eye, a wedding ring, or a pair of shoes. Curses come in all shapes and sizes, and they can happen to anyone, not just those of us with unpopular step-parents. Here you'll find unique twists on curses, from fairy tale classics to brand new hexes of the modern world. Expect new monsters and mythologies, as well as twists on well-loved fables. Stories to shock and stories of warning, stories of monsters, and stories of magic." Yeah, I'm really excited to be checking this out. I've been super in the mood for an anthology recently and some short stories. I don't know what all of these are based off, but I'm just looking at a couple of them. So we've got one that's called As Red as Blood, As White as Snow, Wendy Darling, so that'll be Peter Pan. This one sounds hilarious. Fairy werewolf versus vampire zombie. I have no idea what that's about, but I'm already intrigued. We've got Hassa and Garni, which looks like it's going to be a take on Hansel and Gretel. The Girl from Hell sounds edgy as anything. So yeah, I'm hoping this is just going to be a fun read. So of the other books, my plan is that I have a whole bunch of them. A couple of them are kind of paired up, so we've got a couple for each of the main fairy tales. But I'm not going to be able to read all of these realistically in this month. I may do a part 2 of this or something in the future where I get to the other ones and maybe like pick up the next Cursed anthology. But I'm just going to basically read the first chapter of all of these pretty much and see which ones kind of take my interest, and those are the ones that I will be reading throughout this vlog. I'm probably only going to pick maybe 4 or 5. I have 9 other books here aside from the 2 that I'm already reading, so I'm probably just going to pick 4, maybe 5 at a push from this. So the books in question, we have for Sleeping Beauty, A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford. Now this is a new release, it only just came out in January this year, I think, and I did not realise at all until I was like investigating various books that this is supposed to be a Sleeping Beauty retelling, because it does not seem it from the premise at all. It is supposed to be the start of a new series. It is book 1 in the Golden Court series. All I knew prior to investigating this further is that this is LGBT, it's an epic fantasy, and it's got a lot to do with wolves. Which again is not really something I thought was like a Sleeping Beauty kind of thing. But let me read you the premise. And now that I'm reading it, like seeing this now, I can see how this is Sleeping Beauty inspired, but I think it's going to be a very different take. A sleeping curse, a fallen court, a secret twin. Twins Carla and Briar have spent their entire lives hiding from the powerful sorceress who destroyed their kingdom, and from the humans who don't know they are wolves. Each twin has their own purpose in life. Briar's is to marry the prince of an ally pack and save the Golden Court. Carla's purpose is to remain a secret, her twin's shadow, the backup plan. No one knows who Carla truly is except for her childhood friend and sister's betrothed, the distractingly handsome Prince Grey. But when Carla and Briar journey out of hiding for Briar's wedding, all of their well-made plans go awry. The evil sorceress is back with another sleeping curse for the last heir to the Golden Court. Carla must step out of the shadows to save her sister, her kingdom, and her own legacy. Continuing to hide as a human and denying who she truly is, Carla embarks on a quest across the realm, discovering a whole world she never knew else existed. Outside the confines of a rigid wolf society, Carla begins to wonder, who would she be if she dared to try? So this just sounds so interesting, and like I said, this does not sound anything at all like what I expected a fairy tale retelling to be. So I'm gonna try the first chapter of it just in case I don't gel with it, but I'm really hoping that this is one of the ones I pick to read because it just sounds so different. So the other Sleeping Beauty retelling I have, I'll probably definitely read because I'm not even gonna read the first chapter because it's really short. It's a novella. And it is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. So this is, she kind of does some like twisted fairy tale sort of stuff. She did Nettle and Bone. And this is another one that she's done, which is just very short. I don't honestly know a whole lot about this. So it's about a girl called Toadling who on the day of her birth was stolen away by fairies to grow away safe in fairyland. And then centuries later, apparently, there is a knight who approaches a towering wall of brambles, and he's heard there's a curse there that needs breaking, but it's a curse Toadling will do anything to uphold. So, yeah, this one sounds really interesting. I love me some T. Kingfisher. So I'm probably definitely going to be doing this one because, as I said, like, it is only like 100 pages. I can probably read this in one sitting, quite honestly. So, yeah. These are the two Sleeping Beauty ones. Next, we're moving on to Snow White. So one of these is actually a reread for me if I choose to reread it, and it is Mirror Mirror by Gregory Maguire, who also wrote the Wicked series, which I think he's kind of more famous for, is for the Wicked books. And this is actually based around Snow White, but it's based around the evil queen. They did make a movie of this a few years back, but it's very different tonally, I believe. It's also called Mirror Mirror. It's got like Lily Collins, I think, and Julia Roberts in it, but I think it's very different from what I remember. Like, it's much more of like a comedy kind of thing, and from what I remember of this, it's very dark, it's very twisted, and I don't honestly remember a whole lot about it. I remember I liked it, but when I'm rereading little bits in like the premise, I'm like, it sounds so much weirder than what I remember. But yeah, basically this is set in 1582. It is following Bianca de Nevada, who was 7 years old at the time, and I believe, yeah, she ends up becoming like the evil queen, essentially, like the evil stepmother to Snow White. So yeah, it's not particularly long either, and I would like to reread it at some point soon, if not in this vlog, because it's one that I can't remember if it holds up. So we have that one for Snow White, and then we also have Snow and Poison by Melissa de la Cruz, and I'm not gonna lie, it's literally just the cover is the whole reason why I picked this up. I don't know if it's gonna be great. It's kind of a more historical, realistic retelling, I believe, of Snow White, only in this case, there's a whole thing with, like, she becomes, I guess she's, like, more of, like, a warrior or an assassin in this one or something. Again, it's not massively long, but I am intrigued to try it out, even if I have a suspicion it's not gonna be amazing, but, like, yeah, the cover is the most gorgeous thing ever. She has a Cinderella one too, which I realise I probably could have also picked up for this, but at the time I just really was interested in this one the most, and the Cinderella one doesn't sound quite as interesting, if I'm being honest. So yeah, we have Snow and Poison. So these are our two Snow White retellings. Then we move on to Beauty and the Beast. So we have a book that has been sitting on my shelves for so long, I've just needed an excuse to read it, basically. And it's A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. And this one's really popular. I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I think I think a lot of people really love it. And it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. There is a prince who is cursed, and there is a girl who ends up getting brought into his world. I think there's a whole thing with like his valet or his bodyguard or something. I think the second book, because it's a series, is maybe about him, but I honestly don't know a lot about it. But I love Beauty and the Beast, especially retelling. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see if this is going to be good. Then we have another reread. And again, this is a reread that I kind of want to reread because to see if it's really bad or not anymore, because I remember loving this book when I first read it when I was a teenager, but they made a movie of it. It's awful, and I don't think the book holds up anymore is the thing. So it's Beastly by Alex Flynn. And this is like a modern take on Beauty and the Beast, essentially. But yeah, like I remember loving this book so much, being so excited it got a movie, seeing the movie, hating it. Even Neil Patrick Harris could not save that movie. It was so bad. And I hated all the changes they made. But I don't know if it's going to be good or not anymore. Like, I feel like it was a book of its time and I loved it at the time. And it's probably going to be really problematic now. But I am kind of intrigued to see if it holds up or if it is now just dreadful. So these are the Beauty and the Beast ones. Then we have 3 more books, and they don't fit as well into these nice little fairy tale categories I've got. So we have another one that I've just been really wanting to get to, and it's one that is more just inspired by the idea of fairy tales than it is one specific fairy tale, I believe. And that is A School of Good and Evil by Soman Chainani. I've always really wanted to read this. Like, I feel like it's more of a middle grade book, so it might be too young for me now, but I love the idea of this. They've also got a movie, which I just love the visuals of a lot. So yeah, I'm really hoping that this is one I will get to because I've been dying to read it for a while. And this is a whole series as well, but I'm so intrigued. Anyone who doesn't know, basically it is about school and these 2 girls who are like taken. Apparently every 4 years 2 children are stolen away and never return. And the idea is that one of them goes to like the school of good and one goes to the school of evil. So we kind of got like our sweet heroes and princesses, and then we've got our evil villains. So these 2 girls are obviously picked away to go into that school, but I suspect it's not going to be quite as simple as that, and the lines are going to be a lot more blurred. So I just love the idea of this. It just sounds like such a fun idea, really, to take on fairy tales, and I love villain stuff as well. So, you know, one of my favourite games is Twisted Wonderland, which is this whole like take that's all inspired by like Disney villains. I love things like Maleficent. I just love seeing the villain's point of view on things. So yeah, really intrigued by this one. Then we've got After the Woods by Kel Woods. And this is based on Hansel and Gretel, but it's kind of told after Hansel and Gretel ends and what happens once the things that have happened to them have happened and how they sort of exist and live on after this. I really love this edition, particularly because it's got these like gorgeous end papers. So essentially in this book, Gretel sort of ends up like using some of the magic that I suppose she learnt when she was kidnapped by the witch to help her and her brother survive. And it's all to do with like magic and cooking, so she makes gingerbread and stuff, like the gingerbread house. And yeah, I'm just really interested in this one. It sounds like it's going to be really good. And the final book we have is The Forest Grimm by Catherine Purdle, and this is based off Little Red Riding Hood, essentially. I really don't know a lot about this one, to be honest. Yeah, as you can see, it is very Little Red Riding Hood based, but I think it's supposed to be more of like a romantasy kind of thing. So essentially, yeah, there is supposed to be something called a Book of Fortune. Forest Grimm snatches away the book and the village nearby withers. Her grandmother is a fortune teller, and the girl called Clara, who is our Little Red Riding Hood, must embark on a journey to help procure the book. And with her comes her friend Axel, who is basically helping her do that. I think he's like on the back here. Yeah, here we go. We've got like some art of the 2, so I think it's like a bit of a romantic fantasy kind of thing, but I have heard really good things about it, so I am intrigued by this. But if I'm being honest, I'm more intrigued by After the Forest, because Hansel and Gretel is something I don't see done very well, whereas I think we've all seen a lot of Little Red Riding Hood inspired stuff. Plus this one sounds more romance and this one doesn't, which isn't more anymore. So yeah, those are the books. I'm gonna go away now and I'm gonna read like a chapter of each of those, and I'm gonna report back and tell you which ones I think I'm gonna read for this vlog. Okay, so I've read the first chapter of A River of Golden Bones, and it's very romantic-y so far, I'd say. Basically, we have met one of the sisters, Carla, and we've just kind of seen her going into the town, and she's met up with the prince, who she's obviously got the hots for, but he's marrying her sister, Briar. He's also a wolf too, which I didn't think was going to be the case, but she's basically just talking about how hot she finds him, and how her life is going to change now because he's marrying her sister and she's going to be trained as an assassin. And it was alright. I can't say I've got very high intrigue from it, but I am curious to see where it's gonna go. But it is very much like, I guess it's like a forbidden romance so far because she obviously likes him. He's kind of been a bit flirty towards her, even though he's like, I'm marrying your sister. And I still don't quite get where the whole wolf thing is. Like, it seems to be some kind of big secret that the wolves exist. And yeah, I don't know. It didn't draw me in from the first chapter, I'll be honest. But I might still pick it up, and I'm going to pick up a different one now and see if that one really intrigues me more. Okay, so I read the first chapter of this one, and it is giving me just very kind of historical novel vibes at the moment. We've met Snow, and today her stepmother is going to be arriving to marry her father. She's never met him before. People are saying that like she's really young. She could be as young as Snow's sister herself. And she's also going to be like debuting in society on the same day. I'm not loving the writing style so far, I've got to say. It seems almost a little too modern at times, but I am intrigued, and yeah, the whole the snow and poisons thing does sound interesting to me, but it wasn't the best start, I've got to say. Okay, yeah, I just read the first chapter for this. It's just a very brief, like, 2-page prologue kind of thing. But the writing's really good in this. I was really enjoying it. And, like, there isn't very much that's, like, telling me much at the moment. It's essentially just some nameless narrator who's, like, traveling into this place. And it seems like devastation has happened here. And they're talking about how this is their second life. And they're, like, coming back to this place where bad things happened. And yeah, I'm really intrigued by this one. I read it so long ago, I don't remember very much at all. So it's almost going to be like reading a new book, and maybe some of it will come back to me. But so far, I've got to say, this is sounding more interesting than Snow and Poison is. So this might be the contender for this one. Alright, next we're going to move on to Beauty and the Beast, and I'm going to read the first chapter of A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Another short chapter in this one. It was only a few pages, but this was really interesting. So we're straight away seeing things from the prince's perspective, and he's talking about how he's just like come out of like becoming a beast. So it seems to be something that comes and goes from the looks of it. I don't know if he's always a beast or it's almost like a werewolf thing, like it keeps like happening and he'll go out and like destroy things, and it's only really him and Grey, who's his like Lord Commander, who are left alive in like his castle. Everyone else he's basically killed. And he's talking here right at the end about how he is about to turn 18, or he's just turned 18 for the 327th time. And it sounds like each time he like tries again and has like a girl brought to him to see if she can break the curse, I assume. So this is like very different from our normal Beauty and the Beast, where like Bella's probably the first girl that ever goes to him. And he's kind of reluctant to have her here, but he's very like depressed and just kind of like not even expecting anything to happen anymore from having someone brought here. Like he's given up on this curse being broken. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very readable. I think I'm probably going to carry this one on. So now we're going to pick up the other Beauty and the Beast one, Beastly, and see how the beginning holds up. Okay, one chapter in, and this is very teen high school so far. It's not great. We are seeing things from the guy's perspective, who's called Kyle Kingsbury. And yeah, he's basically just like really arrogant guy who thinks that only looks and riches are like signs of prestige and sign of goodness, and he's just like, there's only like the pretty people and then the ugly ones. And they're basically doing this like balloting class as to who's going to be like the reigning king and queen of this like ball, this prom basically, I think it is. And this like goth girl at the back kind of speaks up and basically says how crap it all is and how it's all like this like really antiquated sort of contest kind of thing, and that, you know, no matter how beautiful he looks, he is inside beastly. So it wasn't subtle. in the slightest, and it wasn't great, honestly. Like, it feels like it would definitely be an easy read, but it already wasn't amazing, so that doesn't bode well for the rest of the book and if it actually holds up or not. So, I'm now gonna try The School for Good and Evil. Cool, we've got pictures. That's nice. Okay, so I'm halfway through the first chapter of The School of Good and Evil. Loving it so far, by the way. And I wanted to just read this a little bit because it's really interesting, because it basically describes the whole premise of what this town, this world is going through. So this whole town is like living in fear, essentially, that every 4 years, a schoolmaster kidnaps 2 children, takes them to a school where one learns good, one learns evil, and they graduate into fairy tales, which is just such a fun idea. We're basically following these 2 girls, mostly following this girl called Sophie, who I think is supposed to be like this girl here on the cover with the blonde hair, and she's just like obsessed with being beautiful and of being good, but only being good in like a way that's very specific to her, and she's very like dismissive of everybody else, and she's like determined that she is going to be one of these girls who is kidnapped to be taken to the school for good. And become, you know, like a princess or something. Like, she's dreaming about being at a ball and like these boys who are finally worthy of her. In the first one, and I think it's like clear right from the get-go that she's actually going to be taken to the school for evil instead, because she's actually like a lot more twisted, but she just thinks that because she's like pretty, that she's obviously destined to go to the school for good. And she's gone to see her friend Sophie, who is this other girl here. And it kind of like, it's obvious that like she is very much like the opposite. Like, cares nothing about like beauty and stuff. Like, she's described as being like not hideous, but just being someone who looks like the opposite of someone who's trying to be pretty, and she's very grumpy and stuff. Sophie is basically like saying, "Oh, Agatha, you're my best friend," and she's just like sniping at her, but she's still kind of going out with her. So I guess they really are friends, but they have this very like catty kind of relationship with one another. They're very shady to one another, but she doesn't seem to like anybody else, whereas she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out with Agatha, who's like the weirdo in town, basically. So yeah, I'm finding it really interesting so far. I've only got a few pages left. I don't think it's going to get to the kidnapping, but my suspicion is that she who thinks she's going to school for good is obviously going to be taken to school for evil, and then she who everyone thinks is like a lost cause is basically going to be revealed that she's going to the school for good. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. So this book is hilarious. There's this whole bit where they're like, Sophie's like talking to Agatha, and Agatha's like saying like, "You're only hanging out with me because I'm like going to be your good deed if you make me like into something pretty and beautiful and give me a makeover. So then they'll choose you for the school for good." And they're just kind of like one-upping each other. And she says, "Agatha, you dressed as a bride for Halloween." And Agatha says, "Weddings are scary," and that just cracked me up so much. So yeah, I think I'm definitely carrying this on because it's really fun. And I'm already like really into these characters and they're like a little dynamic. So yeah, enjoying that one. Okay, so I read the first chapter of this and it's really interesting so far. It's very clear that Greta is haunted by what happened for her, but what happened to her as a child when she was taken away by a witch. But more than that, it's clear that everyone else in the village that she now lives in is also terrified of her because of that, and they believe her to be a witch as well. Like, they're talking about it as almost as if she's a villain. Like, she bumps into this little girl and the girl is like terrified of her, and she's like she's asking her about what happened to her, and she's just like, "Oh, didn't you like push this old lady into a furnace?" Like, they're basically saying that like everyone's frightened of her because she's a witch. They like her brother because he's handsome and pretty with his golden curls, but she looks like she's like a devil, they say, like with this red hair. So yeah, it's really intriguing, and yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. Forest Grimm. So I am in I think I just read the prologue for the Forest Grimm, and I'm really liking it so far. Basically, it's just starting off with Clara as a young girl, and she's at her grandmother's, and her grandmother's like this fortune teller, and she sees this like card called the red card that is supposed to be something where it's it means that you're going to change, like do something great, you're going to change fate one day. And she, as soon as she sees this card, she's like obsessed with it. She like dreams in red, and then she goes to her grandmother and she says, please will you tell my fortune one more time. And the thing is that this girl's fortune is horrible. She is basically fated to have an early death and a horrible death. So her grandmother like does it again, and she's like, I'm gonna get the red card, I know it this time, but the fortune is the same, and she has this really horrible fortune again. And then her mother comes, and it turns out her mother has the exact same fortune, and she's like, it's okay, you know, none of this has happened to me before, don't worry. And they kind of go off together, but I have a suspicion that when we carry on, something bad will have happened to her mother. And this is going to be about her trying to see if she can like change her fate and not have what the fortune is told for her is told. And it's all to do with the forest as well, because it's talking about a fanged creature. And yeah, I'm really intrigued by this one so far. I definitely think I prefer After the Forest a little bit more in terms of how it started, but I am liking how this one is sounding so far. So I've read all the first chapters of those ones, and obviously we're definitely going to be reading Cursed, Remesa, and Thornhedge, but I think I've decided that of the other books, I'm definitely going to be carrying on The Forest Grim, School for Good and Evil, After the Forest, and A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I am intrigued by the other ones, but they didn't really stand out to me as much. So unless I kind of change my mind and decide to read another one, I'm probably not going to carry on at the moment with Snow and Poison, with Mirror Mirror, Beastly, and The River of Golden Bones, which I'm kind of sad about because it's a new release. So I think if I do end up picking up another book, this might be the one I pick up, because although I didn't like the intro, I'm still really intrigued by this and what it's going to do with the story of Sleeping Beauty. So this one is probably still a maybe, but I think for now, let me get all the books. But yeah, I think for now, this is going to be the stack that I'm going to try and read. So I'm going to get on with my reading, and I will check in with you once I've read something. So, first update on Thornhedge. I'm literally only a couple of pages in, but this bit just really made me laugh, and it's just talking about the fairy who's like created this like the fawns that's obviously going around the tower, and she's saying that like she doesn't look like very pretty compared to other fair folk, and she's not full of evil, but instead she is mostly fretful and often tired. And my gosh, relatable. So it turns out I was wrong when I was reading the premise of this book. Toadling is not in fact the girl who's stuck in the tower. She is the fairy, or the half fairy, she's kind of a changeling I think, who's put the girl there, and basically all the brambles and stuff are there, and she's kind of been charged with keeping it that way, I suppose. So she's just kind of been like, she seems very lonely as well. Yeah, she's been charged with doing that, and now finally there is someone who has come and who looks like they finally are going to try and go into the brambles and the thorns, and she's tried to scare them away, but it hasn't worked. So we'll see where it's going to go from here. It's quite funny so far. Okay, so I finished Thornhedge, did manage to actually read it the same day I picked it up, and yeah, I really liked it. I'd say it was probably a 4-star for me, and it was just short and sweet, and I liked the interpretation that T. Kingfisher put on this, basically kind of like doing the whole thing of, you know, what if the sorceress that, you know, sends the princess to sleep is the good one in the tale. And yeah, not much more I can say about it, honestly. It was short and sweet. I liked the characters, I thought it was really sweet, and it was weirdly wholesome for a kind of twisted take on a Sleeping Beauty take. So yeah, that is the first book of the vlog done. I'm not sure which one I'm going to pick up next. I think I'm just going to wake up in the morning and see which one I'm feeling. So, until then. 100 pages now into the School for Good and Evil and still quite liking it. I've got to say, Agatha is easily my favourite of the two. Sophie is thankfully very funny, but I can't say I really like her as a character otherwise, but it really is like playing up the comedy so far in this book. It's also starting to feel a bit more middle grade, so I don't know if that's going to lose me a little bit as it goes further on, but so far at least, I am enjoying it. Because I read the first couple of stories in this. The first one was actually just a poem that was really short. It was just kind of fine. Poetry isn't really my thing. I rated it 2. The second story was a take on Snow White by Christina Henry, I believe this one was, called As Red as Blood, As White as Snow. And it was just kind of fine. I don't think it was particularly amazing or memorable. The writing was very readable, but honestly it didn't really like leave much of an impression. It was kind of a mix of both Snow White and Bluebeard, and they kind of meshed the two stories together, but you just didn't really get to know who Snow was, the protagonist, very much to even care that much about her, unfortunately. I did really like the relationship she had with like her evil stepmother. I thought that was a really nice twist in how they did that in the story, but overall it was just fine. I gave it a low 3. Then I read Neil Gaiman's story, which is called Trollbridge, which is based off that kind of like old tale about someone who goes over a bridge, there's a troll underneath, and they kind of bargain with the troll to not eat him, and this one was just very depressing, to be honest. I really didn't like the protagonist. Like, it's Neil Gaiman, so the writing is gorgeous, but I just did not like the protagonist. I really didn't like the direction the story went, and it was just very depressing. So again, I'm rating it probably slightly higher than the Snow White one, just because the writing is much better, but it is again a low 3. So update time, I am now further into Cursed. I've read another 4 or so stories, and it's thankfully gotten better. I've had 3 4-star stories and a 3-star story, so relieved about that. I read At That Age by Catriona Ward. Really liked this one. It was kind of a weird thing about twins, and I liked the main character, and it was just really interesting and really creepy, so I enjoyed that a lot. Definitely going to be checking out some more from Catriona Ward in the future, because I've heard good things about her books, particularly The Last House on Needless Street. I then read Listen by Jen Williams, which was a really eerie take on the Pied Piper. Really enjoyed that one as well. And then I read Henry and the Snakewood Box by Emma Carey, which I didn't love, but it was very humorous. It was essentially like it was a demon stuck in a box, and he makes a deal with this like boy who he thinks is too dumb to understand, and the whole idea is that whenever the wisher wishes something, an equally negative thing happens on the other side of the world, so the demon is like trying to make more and more chaos happen. And that was a little gross at times, but it was pretty funny. And then I read a Skin by James Brogden, which was just really gross, to be honest. It was really kind of body horror, gory kind of thing. I gave it a 3 in the end. It is, funnily enough, what I wish the XX could have been for me. So yeah, it is getting on better now. I am just under halfway through, so I'm going to try and get through a few more, I think, today, and yeah, we'll see if this continues on the 4s or if it goes back down again. I'm also further into School for Good and Evil. I'm about the halfway point now. Still quite enjoying it, but I am definitely getting the feeling that this is a series that I probably will not be carrying on, unfortunately. It's just a little bit too middle grade for me. I'm kind of like seeing what's happening a little too easy. So I'm enjoying it for what it is, and I think I'm hopefully going to enjoy the direction it's going in, but at the moment it's not drawn me in enough that I think I'm going to carry on this series, unfortunately. But we'll see, it might have a sudden turnaround in the last half, but I'm still really enjoying it. It's still very funny. Very much here for Agatha. Sophie's getting annoying now, to be honest, but she's still funny in her own way. So yeah, updates. Excuse the bad lighting, but I just got back from grocery shopping and I got some fortune cookies, which I freaking love. Like, I love just the taste of fortune cookies anyway, so I would happily just eat fortune cookies anyway. But I thought this would be really cool to like just have, and I have 10 of them, and then throughout different points of the year I'm gonna like open one whenever I feel like I need like something to give me a push or whatever. So I am gonna open one now. Here we go, and we'll see what my fortune has to say to me. So ironically, I had one like a few months back and it was so accurate. Let me go get it. I put it onto my computer and just stuck it there because I feel like it's something I need to remember. But it says, I don't know if it's going to focus or not. I don't think it's going to focus, but it says learn to walk before you can run, and I'm like, never has truer words been said for me because I'm awful for that. So I stuck it on my computer as a reminder, so I keep seeing it, and it's just a reminder for me to slow down, honestly. So let's see what this one has to say. Oh, it's half in German. Lucky stars will be shining for you tonight. That's nice. Again, I don't think that's gonna show up properly, but it says it on the back as well, I think, but it's in German, so I don't know why these are like Chinese but they're also German, but I'll take stars shining brightly for me tonight. So that's my small update. So I have finished The School for Good and Evil this morning. Well, I actually stayed up quite late last night to finish it, and I've got thoughts, to be honest, about this one. I did really enjoy the beginning, but it really kind of got a bit frustrating the further on it went. I'm not going to go into spoilers and stuff for this, but it really just felt like a lot of the messages it was trying to say, it'd have like these brief moments of these like really good messages that were coming through, and then it would just kind of like double back on itself. And there was so much repetition going on, like the amount of times that people were like, Agatha's a witch, Sophie's a witch, no, Agatha's a witch, no, Sophie's a witch. And I think it was a bit too long, to be honest, because it just ended up going back on itself a lot. And a lot of the messages I think it was trying to say, just messages to do with, you know, what is good, what is evil, can't people just be something in between? I think they got a little lost, to be honest, because every time they'd start to double down on saying something, something would happen and it would just kind of go back on itself, which was very frustrating. Also, Tedros was not great as the main male character. Like, I don't know if it was on purpose, but I know he's in future books, and I'm just like, I did not like him, like, at all. I still kind of enjoyed Agatha and Sophie, but Sophie's development really suffered throughout this book. Agatha I liked pretty much all the way through, and I did like kind of like the thing that happened right at the end, which led to the conclusion of the book. But I was curious because it's not a series I think I'm going to carry on with, honestly. And I had a look, and annoyingly, the sequel just kind of undoes everything that the ending of this book does. So I'm definitely not going to be carrying this on, unfortunately. It had a lot of potential, and I think the author had some really good ideas, but I think it just got really confused. And there was just a lot that was happening that I don't think really worked in terms of the message the book was trying to say. So it's a shame, because I really hoped that I was going to like this enough to carry on the series, because I know it's like there's like another 4 books after this, and then a prequel series as well. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to leave it here at the first book. I didn't hate it or anything. It was a solid 3. Like, it still had a lot of the humour for a lot of the time, which I enjoyed, but otherwise there was just like some elements I really wasn't keen on. There was a bunch of problematic elements that it kept trying to make better and then just repeating, so just stuff that I wish hadn't have happened, unfortunately. So a bit of a shame, but that is that book done. I've also made some more progress in Cursed. I am now Yeah, about halfway through, I think. I'm about to start Fairy Werewolf versus Vampire Zombie, which has one of the best titles in this book. I'm trying to remember what I got to the last time I updated you with this one. Okay, yeah, so I've read 3 more stories since the last time I updated you, and they were all frees, so they weren't amazing, but they were all just kind of fine. I read Faith and Fred by Maura McHugh, which had some really good ideas. It was basically about these 2 skulls that were left behind in this house as part of like a family curse, and it was found by this guy who was trying to renovate the place, and it became kind of obvious that they couldn't be removed because there was going to be a curse on them, and it had some really interesting ideas, but it just didn't really go anywhere. I don't think it really developed it that much, unfortunately. It was just kind of like a little spooky tale, but not bad. Then I read Black Fairy's Curse, which again had some really interesting imagery, but it was just too short to really be amazing. It was essentially what it is in the dreams of essentially Sleeping Beauty while she is under the curse before she is woken up by this strange man who's come to wake her up. Had some really good commentary, but again, it just wasn't long enough to really have a lot to go on. And then the last one was Wendy Darling by Christopher Golden, who I've read some before because he's done a lot of like the Buffy novelizations, and again I thought this had some good ideas, but I didn't like the overall theme that essentially like everything that it kind of like, it started off by being like, oh, all this fantasy stuff is real, and then it kind of doubled back on itself and was like, no, this is all something that she's made up because she's can't deal with what's happened in reality, and she's made this fantasy world to kind of explain it all, and it was very depressing, to be honest, and I wasn't keen of it. I would also suggest trigger warnings for that one in particular, because there are definitely some themes in that one which I think would upset some people. So yeah, 3 sort of okay ones, to be honest. So I'm not sure how many I've got left now. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 9 left, I think. So I think next time I update you, I should only have a couple more to go, hopefully. And I'm hoping this last half will get better again, because it did kind of head up into 4 territory for a while, and now it's back in the 3s again. So I'm hoping these last bunch are gonna be better. I'm really hoping for this crazy named one, Fairy Werewolf versus Vampire Zombie, is just gonna be as bonkers as I want it to be. So we'll check in again once I've made more progress. Hello, coming to you with an update because I have finished Cursed, and unfortunately it didn't get much better in those last stories, which was a real shame. I was at this point, I think I'd probably done maybe about 10, 11 of the stories, and I think I got 1 more 4 out of all of the ones that were here at the end. Oh no, I got 2 4s. But the rest were all just 3s and 2s, unfortunately. So I think that does mean that overall I'm going to be rating this book a 3. Because it was just a lot of just kind of like mid stories, I suppose. There were some that had good ideas, but they just didn't flesh them out well enough, or it was something I'd seen done before. So yeah, that was a shame. I was really hoping that some of those were going to be better, but I did really enjoy some of these stories, and there's a couple authors in here that I'm definitely going to check out. So, of the stories I hadn't got to, as I said last time, I was really excited for the next story, which was Fairy Werewolf versus Vampire Zombie by Charlie Jane Anders. And this wasn't great, unfortunately. It had some really great ideas, like the sense of humour was great. It was like a very kind of like comedic take on horror. And I don't really want to spoil it because it feels like most of what happens in this story is played for kind of like shock factor for the laughs, so I feel like if you know what's happening going into this, it takes away any of the fun of it. So it had some really fun ideas, but I just don't think the writing was too great. It felt like they were trying to pack too much into too short of amount of time, and it felt to me like someone who was quite a new writer, and they were really trying to show how quirky they could be and pack as much quirkiness into this short story, and it just needed more time to breathe. Like, they could have just cut it down a little bit, unfortunately. And the humour was like so much that it didn't really leave any kind of room for anything else. So yeah, that wasn't great. I then read Look Inside, which I originally did like do quite a low rating for, but then it kind of stuck with me and I thought about it more and I was like, oh god, I'm thinking about it, so I think it's actually had an impact on me, so I've got to give it a higher rating. I would check trigger warnings for this one because there are some things towards the end that I really don't like where it's going. I don't like the kind of stalkery aspect of what happens in this one, but I did think the main character was quite interesting and I did think it was quite haunting. And it had some really good ideas. So essentially this was about a woman who lives alone, but she starts finding these like notes inside her bread box from someone who was coming into her house, essentially. And yeah, it was very creepy. Did not like the ending in the slightest, but it definitely like was quite haunting. Little Red was next. I didn't like this one at all. I read this one a 2. This was essentially just kind of like a vignette of stuff. A vignette of like small episodes that happen to a girl who is in some kind of facility, I suppose. It's not really specified exactly where she is or what happened to her for her to be here, but she's someone who's very damaged. And it plays into the whole like Little Red Riding Hood is the wolf trope, but there's a lot of stuff with rape in it. And yeah, I did not like it for that, unfortunately. It was very short, but I really didn't like some of the heavy themes that it dealt with, and I don't think it dealt with it very well, to be honest. New Wine was next by Angela Slatter. I rated this a 3. This one really stuck out to me as being one of the only ones that didn't really have any kind of supernatural implications in it at all. And essentially it was just quite a well-written, self-contained mystery that completely resolved itself. It felt a little bit like I just read like, like one of those like made-for-TV crime movies, to be honest. I did like the main character quite a lot. She was quite interesting, but it was kind of predictable in where it was going, and it didn't really leave much of a lasting impression, unfortunately. But it was well told. Then I read Hassa and Garni by Lilith St. Croix, which is a unusual take on Hansel and Gretel. It kind of transplants it into a different culture, and it really fleshes out their roles and how they exist in the world, and it really twists the idea of how they are kind of both trapped within a situation when they leave their family and how they manage to overturn the situation. I really liked it. I gave it a 4. Hated was next by Christopher Fowler. This one was just kind of fine. Essentially, it's just this very simple premise of this guy who everybody loves, and then he gets involved in an incident and a curse is put on him to basically take that away from him, so everyone hates him now instead. Not hugely fleshed out, but it was fine. The Merry Dancers was next by Alison Littlewood. It's a kind of a take on the Red Shoes. I gave it a 3. It was really nicely well written. Essentially, it's this girl who's like moved into her house, and there's this old lady who lives next door who wears the red shoes, and she ends up talking to this old lady and hearing about her past and how she got the red shoes. Then again by Tim Leben, I gave this one a 4-star. Really liked this one. It gave me big Addie LaRue vibes, basically, and it's about this girl called Jodie who is essentially cursed to always keep living. Basically, like, she dies and then her like soul or whatever is kind of just like shoved into another body somewhere else when someone's just died. So she basically just dies over and over, and it's quite graphic in how it shows this. But there's this really sweet love story between her and this woman called Evelyn that is spread throughout it, and how like all of the years she keeps kind of finding her again, and they have these really sweet moments together. So yeah, I actually really liked that one. I thought it was a very kind of quiet story, but I really liked it. And the last story I read was The Girl from Hell by Margot Lanigan, and this one just didn't really work for me. It was kind of told in a very disjointed style, and I think it is based... what is it based around? Essentially, it's just based around this girl whose parents have been cursed in some kind of way by her evil grandmother, and she is sneaking into her grandmother's garden and into her house to take back control and put a curse onto her grandmother so that their family is free, essentially. And it was just told in a very weird style. and it just didn't really work for me, unfortunately, but I can see how it would really work for other people. Funnily enough, you know how I said there was a poem right at the beginning, which I wasn't keen on, but it was called Castle Cursed? At the very end, we have like another one by the same author which closes it off, called Castle Waking. Still didn't really love it, but I just thought it was really interesting that like it kind of ended and closed with this poem. So yeah, that is Cursed. Didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to, unfortunately. There was just a mix of stories, and only a couple of them really stood out for me. So I know there is a sequel to this. I think I'll check out what authors there are in it first before I look if I want to check that one out too. But overall, it was just fine. It didn't really like do as much as I was kind of hoping it was going to, given they had so many various like stories and stuff that they chose to kind of work with. So that is that book. I also probably like 2 days after I finished reading The School of Good and Evil, watched the movie, which is on Netflix at the moment, and I watched this with a friend, and I didn't think I'd be that person, but I liked the movie more than I liked the book. It's by no means a brilliant movie. I mostly wanted to watch it because the costumes are gorgeous in it, but I honestly had a really good time with it. Like, it was just, I kind of went into it wanting like a fun, kind of trashy movie, and it definitely delivered. And I've got to say, enjoyment wise, I think it was better than the book, and I think the messages that I was trying to say was so much clearer than it was in the book, which I did find was needlessly convoluted. So yeah, did not expect that to be actually good, but I actually had a good time with it. You know, if it's something that, you know, if you just want something silly to put on, I would recommend it. There are so many actors in this who are like really big actors, and it feels like they just chucked a whole bunch of people into this movie. But the girl who plays Agatha, I thought, was really good, and yeah, it was just fun basically. So, you know, nothing spectacular, but I enjoyed it. So I thought I'd give a quick update before I head out to work. I've started Remesa. I'm 2 stories in out of the 3. I'm not really enjoying it, which I'm really sad about. It's... see, the thing is that I knew it was middle grade. I didn't realise that it was going to be very young middle grade. It reads almost... the writing style is incredibly simplistic, and it reads almost like it should have been in a picture book, except the stories are a bit too long. So it's a little bit of a shame. Like, it's got some good ideas, but I'm not really enjoying it all that much. I'm mostly just kind of bored. So yeah, that's a shame. So I read Remesa, which is the the Rapunzel retelling, and I liked the first half of it, and then I think it just got a little bit silly towards the end. Like, you just introduce this random character who comes along with a magic carpet, and I appreciate that she did rescue herself with her hijab, but yeah, I just wasn't crazy on it, unfortunately. There was also this random talking owl who was like Remesa's only friend, and then I didn't realise though when I went into the second story, which was Cinderella, which is the Cinderella retelling. I think it's Cinderella, possibly. I think the main girl's name is Isla. I don't really know if I'm pronouncing it right, but she's like the Cinderella, basically. I did like how in that story, it played up that actually her stepsisters were not as evil, and they were just kind of following on what the stepmother was doing, and they kind of had a bit of redemption, which was nice. I also liked what they did with the prince in that one, in that it didn't end in the typical way that the story would end, and it was very realistic about that. I did not realise, though, that Remesa was going to carry on being through these stories, because I thought this was just going to be Isla's story, and then she just shows up halfway through and is basically the fairy godmother. So that was unexpected, just because, I mean, it is Remesa a fairy tale. I probably should have realised she was going to come back into it again, but it like took half of the story because she just randomly showed up. So that was a bit out of the blue. So I've only got one left, which is Sleeping Sarah, and it's already starting off with Remesa basically going to the place where Sleeping Sarah is going to be. So I don't really have high hopes for this getting better, unfortunately. I just don't think this was for me. I think it's suited again for younger people, but very low middle grade, unfortunately. So I will finish this and I will do my check-in, but at the moment I think it's sitting around a 2-star, unfortunately. It's just not really for me. I have also started The Forest Grimm, though, however. I really wanted to read Into the Woods, but time was ticking on this month, and I wanted to at least get one more book read, because I've not really had good luck with the books I've read. Like, I'm feeling a bit like this vlog is like a little bit of a disappointment, because I've had maybe like one good book, and the rest have all just been kind of meh. So I wanted to try and get at least one more read, and I was like, I know I can finish Forest Grimm, and it did look good. So even though I really wanted to read After the Forest, I think I'm going to save After the Forest for another time. So I'm reading that. I'm not far in. It's fine so far. I'm enjoying it well enough, so I'm hoping it's going to get better and that I'll really like it. So yeah, that is the update. Hopefully I'll get a good book out of Forest Grimm, because at the moment this is not feeling like a great vlog. Right, I'll check in once I've read more. So, I got back from work and I'm a bit further into The Forest Grimm, and I didn't really get a chance earlier to talk a little bit about my thoughts so far with it, so I thought I would do it now. So, I am about that far through. I'm not quite halfway, but I'm almost halfway. And I'm liking it so far, but I'm having issues with the romance, not gonna lie. I really like the story plot of this one. I'm enjoying how the author is kind of not just making this a Little Red Riding Tale, but it's also kind of blending in different fairy tales in different ways, which I think is really cool. So essentially this book is about this village that had like a curse put upon it years ago, and then the forest around the village essentially spirits away people every so often, and the main character Clara, her mother is the first person who was spirited away. And both her and her mother share this like tarot reading that her grandma does that basically is like, you're gonna have an early death. And it's to do with like the forest, and this wolf symbol is kind of a thing as well. So it's a good premise, and essentially what happens, Clara discovers that there is a way for her to go inside the forest, because people are supposed to go into the forest like via lottery to try and find the people who disappeared, but the forest just kind of throws them out, and she finds a way to get past it via this cloak that she has, hence the Little Red Riding Hood. And she takes this guy called Axel Long, who is like a childhood friend of hers, and they have like a very nice friendship. It's very sweet, but the issue I have is that this book is really shoehorning in the romance between these two, and it's just kind of irritating. Like, it's getting very repetitive. It's doing the whole thing where it's just like, oh, and I fell upon him, and oh, he's shirtless all the time, and look how handsome he is, but no, it's okay, I'm not really attracted to him. And this whole thing is like, it's supposed to be playing with this like forbidden love trope, because essentially his fiancée Ella was taken by the forest like a year previously, so his motive for going into the forest with Clara is that he's wanting to get his fiancée back. They were like, literally, it was on her wedding day or something, that she was like stolen away by the forest. So Clara keeps being like, oh no, he's so hot, but I can't have him because he loves Ella. And he's making moves on her, I gotta say. And he's fine, but he's just kind of boring as a character. He's just kind of nice. And it's just getting a little bit irritating because there's all these like important things going on. Like they're literally lost in the forest. Things are trying to attack them. They're running out of food. They don't know if they're going to find anybody. And it just kind of keeps going over this thing like, oh no, I fell on him. Oh no, oh, I can't be attracted to him. And it's just really irritating, and it's kind of killing the vibe for me a little bit. I know some people will like love that and they will like not understand where I'm coming from, but I'm really enjoying like the plot of this book, and every time the romance keeps coming up, and it keeps coming up, I'm just kind of like wanting it to be over with because I want to get back to the more interesting things that are happening. So yeah, that is one of my bugbears with it. I've also got to say that Clara as a character is alright, but my god, she is a bad friend. Like, she has this friend who's in this, and she keeps like putting her friend into like awkward situations and kind of being an ass about it. So she's a bad friend, basically. I don't appreciate how she treats her friends. So yeah, that is how I'm feeling so far. I think it is maybe starting to ramp up now in terms of the plot, which is good. Also, I have a suspicion, and I haven't got to any point yet where I can reveal this, so this is not a spoiler, this is just me theorizing, but we've seen this like grim wolf who's supposed to be like this giant wolf, and it's kind of following Clara. It doesn't really seem to be interested in anybody else, it's just Clara. And Clara straight away has just said, oh, the wolf is a she. And I'm like, how do you know that? Just from seeing this wolf from a distance. Like, I haven't seen anything that proves that she's like really aware of animals to be able to tell their gender like straight away. So I have a theory that the wolf is actually her mother, because we've met a couple of people so far who are like the lost people, and they've all been twisted and changed by the forest. And yeah, I think that is what the reveal is going to be, is that this grim wolf is actually Clara's mother who she's looking for. So yeah, that's what it is so far. It's quite a quick read, to be honest, which is why I'm a bit sad I'm not enjoying it more. So I'm going to crack on, and I will update you if there's anything else exciting to update with, or otherwise it'll be whenever I finish the book. Also, I can update you about another film that I watched, because I did watch another film the day, again with a friend of mine. It was something that she also wanted to watch, and it was really fun. So I watched Once Upon a Crime, which is a Japanese fairy tale movie, but it's kind of crossover detective mystery, basically. So essentially, in the movie, Little Red Riding Hood is playing the role of a detective, and she meets Cinderella, and there is a murder that happens prior to the ball, and Red Riding Hood is trying to like solve the murder and work out who is behind it all. So it was really fun, honestly. Like, had some great costumes. It was not the best, to be honest, in terms of like the acting and the plot and the special effects. Like, it felt a little bit B-movie, not gonna lie. Like, I don't think they had a lot of budget for this. But it was very fun, and I enjoyed it. And I was surprised by the end reveal that they did with the mystery. It was a twist that I was not expecting. So yeah, really enjoyed that. So that's 2 of the 3 movies I wanted to watch, and I've enjoyed both of those so far. I think I've been enjoying the movies more than the books, to be honest, which I'm sad about. I've only got one left I want to try and watch, and that's Into the Woods, so I might watch that one tonight, and hopefully I will also enjoy that one. So yeah, and cracking over the books. I may try and fit one more in After the Forest Grimm if I can, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'm just really wanting to read After the Forest, so if I can fit it in, I will, because that one is like a prediction is like a 4 or a 5 star for me, that one. Like, I really love the concept, and I liked the writing style. So yeah, I'm going to end it here because my hands are shaking too much, so everything is wobbly. But that is the update. I will check in again when I have something more exciting to update you about. So it's been a few days since I last updated. I basically just wasn't very well over the last couple of days. I had a bad pain flare up, which meant just getting through each day was suffering, to be honest. So I just had to rest a lot. And I didn't really get a lot of reading done either. So I didn't really have very much to update you about. Plus, I just felt so awful that you would not want to see me on camera. But I'm starting to feel a bit better now. So I thought I would give a bit of an update of where I'm at now. And I've also had some mail. So we're going to do a little bit of an unboxing, and I went shopping over last weekend with a friend and I may have got some books, so it's also going to be a little bit of a haul. But first, let us get on with the book updates. So I finished Ramesa. Didn't love it. I'm really sad to say, because I think the idea of it is so good. I think this is obviously a book that is going to be so important for a lot of people. And I just didn't connect with it, unfortunately. I think I said before in one of my updates, this reads very young middle grade. Too young for me, honestly. Like, I felt like it could almost have been a picture book. It was written so simplistically, and that is perhaps the point, because it is written like a fairy tale in a very simple manner. But I think it just made it very flat to me. And there was also a lot of like tell, don't show. And I think what issue that had for me is that it made all the characters very flat and two-dimensional. And I didn't really get a lot of emotion from them. I think that honestly would have really made the difference for me, is if I'd gotten more of an emotional impact from this. If I'd really kind of got the feelings and felt empathy for these characters, but other than just kind of being told how their life is bad, I didn't really get to know much about their personalities. So yeah, unfortunately, it just didn't really work for me. I can definitely see how other people would love it, so I feel bad kind of rating this low, but I just didn't enjoy it, unfortunately. But definitely not a bad book, it just did not work for me, unfortunately. So, a sad update for Ramesa, because I really did want to love this. But a silver lining is that my workplace is doing like a children's book drive at the moment. So people are being encouraged to bring in children's books to give to people in need. So I'm definitely going to pass this along, and hopefully it will fall into someone's hands who will adore it and it'll be perfect for them. So that is my update on Ramesa. I am further in the Forest Grimm. I am just past the halfway point now. Still quite liking it. Still not really feeling the romance, to be honest, but I'm having a good time with it, and it's an easy read, so I really cannot complain about that. There has definitely been more now with the Cinderella character, and I feel like there's more reveals to come. And yeah, I'm still enjoying it, basically. It's probably gonna be about 3-star. I think at the moment. I don't think, unless there's some big twist or something coming, I don't see this being one that is gonna be a really high rating for me, but I'm having a good time. I feel like I've not really had much in the way of like really good books this vlog, which is kind of sad. Like, I feel this vlog has been like a bit of a letdown, at least for you guys viewing it. Like, I've had a good time reading these books, but I also kind of wished that I had some better books in this vlog, because I feel like I'm complaining a lot. And I do have a little bit of time left, so I thought I'd try and read one more thing, but realistically, I'm not going to be able to read anything too chunky, so After the Forest is out. But I was just kind of browsing through some books that I had, and I completely forgot that I have this fairy tale manga series, which I never completed, called Dictatorial Grimoire. It is only a 3-volume series, and I read the first 2 books from the library a while back, and I could never find the 3rd volume, so I never finished it, but I remember I really liked it. Essentially, this is kind of one of those, like, it's not BL, but it's kind of BL adjacent, where, like, the main character's a boy, and all the other guys, and all the other characters are mostly, like, pretty boys who kind of get attached to the main character. And this main character is a boy who is a descendant of the Grimm's brothers. And this guy right here is Cinderella. And I think on the back here, this is Snow White. I have no idea who the girl is. She's obviously important in some way, but hell if I know who this girl is. I read it so long ago, I really don't remember much about this, but it should be fun. It's got like, yeah, really nice artwork, and I think it'll be a fun way to end this vlog is for me to read a manga as well. So yeah, I think that is my plan. I'm gonna finally finish this series, and I hope it'll be good. I remember really enjoying it, and I just, again, it's one of those that has like a weird take on the characters, so I like seeing that. I read a couple of other like fairy tale inspired mangas before, but there's not many that I've not finished basically, but I remember one of the other ones that I read was called Ludwig Revolution or Ludwig Kakame, I think, and that was kind of like a weird twisted take on fairy tales. It's by the same author who did Angel Sanctuary and Godchild, I believe. And that was like really creepy and messed up, but I really loved that series. So yeah, that was another series that I considered rereading, but I feel like because I'm so close to finishing this series and I never did, it is time. I also realised I could read the second volume of Twisted Wonderland, which is obviously very fairy tale inspired, and I haven't got to it yet, so I may also squeeze this in, but I think for now my plan is finish Forest Grimm and read Dictatorial Grimoire, and I'm really excited to like get to finally completing this series, so I hope it has a good ending. So to finish off, we have our Waterstones parcel that we're going to open. I pre-ordered this special edition from Waterstones, and I'm really excited to see it. And it's a Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal, and ooh, those are different sprayed edges than what I thought they were going to be. So you've got kind of like a smoky tea kind of thing, which is like this here, like that on the back. Oh, this is very nice on the inside though. We've got kind of like a, it's signed by the author, and it's got this like nice little like inner plate thing. I like it as an actual like, it's kind of built into it that it's signed by the author. That's really nice. Let's see what else we've got in here. I don't think there's going to be anything else like too special about it. I'm just excited to read this book because it's vampires and it sounds very Six of Crows-y. Oh, we got a very cool map here, which I like the look of. Ooh, and this is kind of like the chapter page. That's very cool. I like that. What does it look like under the dust jacket? Oh, it's just plain under the dust jacket, but yeah, I really like it, and I don't know when I'll get to reading this. Maybe I'll get to it in March. It's really not that thick. I kind of thought it was going to be a lot thicker than this. Yeah, it sounds really fun, and excited to get to read this. So that is my little unboxing for you. I did think my Illumicrate was going to arrive today as well, but it's been delayed, so it's going to be arriving tomorrow now, so I may do that in an update later on, but yeah, that is it really in terms of the updates for today. The next time I will update you, I'll hopefully have finished the Forest Grimm, so I'll be able to tell you my final thoughts on that. So that is kind of like the reading updates. I did also watch the third film that I wanted to watch this month, which was Into the Woods, and it wasn't good. It was kind of a fever dream of a film. Like, I hadn't heard great reviews of it, but I just kind of was like, wanted to try it out anyway because I love musicals, and I did not like it. Like, one of those movies, I put it on and within 5 minutes, I could tell this was not going to be a good time. I could tell this was just a really bad film. It had some good moments in it, don't get me wrong. Like, I thought Emily Blunt and Anna Kendrick were really good in it, but I did not enjoy the storyline. I didn't really enjoy anything in it. I've got to say, I didn't like it at all. Like, you know, it is based off a play, a musical, sorry, that was originally in the 1980s. And I've got to say, after having looked into the original musical, I don't think I would even like the original. I just don't think the story is for me, unfortunately. Like, it's a good idea of like having all these different fairy tales all meshed together, and then kind of in the second half it kind of steps away from the happy ever after thing and takes a bit more of a realistic stance of what happens to these fairy tales. But it was just very dark and it wasn't very fun, and yeah, everything was like, it was just too much all at once. So don't recommend it, I guess. I'm kind of sad that I sat through the whole movie, although I did kind of, after the first half hour, I just mentally checked out and just started doing stuff on my computer and just had it on in the background and just looked up occasionally to see how much worse it had got. But yeah, sadly it wasn't really for me, but I did enjoy the other two films, and at least I can say I finally watched Into the Woods now, and I will never watch it again. So yeah, that is a shame, but it be what it be. It was kind of fun though, because I'm obviously reading Forrest Grimm at the moment, which is Red Riding Hood based, and it also meshes a lot of fairy tales into it, which is kind of what this movie did too. So it did feel kind of fitting to watch it at the same time as I was reading Forrest Grimm, but I'll just stick with Forrest Grimm, I think. So last weekend I ended up visiting a friend of mine, and we had like a little library visit and a little bookshop visit. There was also an aquarium in the basement of the library, which was really unusual. I got to see stingrays, and stingrays are my favourite sea creature of all time. I love them so much. So that kind of made my day. Like, not only did I have a nice time with my friend, we like had a nice little sit in a cafe together, we caught up a little bit, we got to browse libraries and bookshops. She's as much of a book nerd as me, so to us, going around a library together is a good time. And yeah, I did actually buy a couple of books as well from the Waterstones. So I picked up 2 books which are for a manga project I'm going to be doing in a few months. I picked up the first volume of Apothecary Diaries and the first volume of Our Dreams at Dusk, which is an LGBT sort of drama series. So very excited to get to these 2. And because I feel like this book has been haunting me and I've almost bought it so many times, I finally picked up Fae-Bound by Sarah Ella Reefy. I love like just the standard Waterstones version, to be honest. I'm really intrigued by this. I still haven't read anything by this author yet, but I just have almost bought this so many times over the last 2 months, and it was on sale and I was like, you know what, it's time. So I finally picked that up as well. But yeah, I had a really nice time. It was good to chill with a friend, and like I said, it was nice to go to the aquarium and to see those stingrays because they were so cute. Like, there was these 2 females in one tank, and then in another tank they had a whole load of pups, and they were like little pancakes floating around, and they were so cute. So yeah, that was what I did on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday I went to the cinema with a friend of mine to go see Poor Things, which I really enjoyed. It was not exactly the movie I was expecting it to be. Like, I was expecting it to be really arty, but I thought it was going to lean more into the horror and actually like more into comedy, which was kind of a nice surprise. So I laughed way more than I thought I was going to at that movie. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time. And I went to a charity shop beforehand and managed to amazingly find some deals of some books that I really wanted. So they had like basically in this charity shop, it was kind of like any 3 books for £1. So I got 3 books and I was amazed that one of these books is the 30th anniversary edition of The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And like, it is chunky, it is gorgeous. It even has like these like nice end papers and stuff. So I paid like 30p for this, and it is in perfect condition. So that was a really lucky find. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I've really been wanting to read more Dark Academia, so this is perfect. I also managed to find the omnibus edition of the first Evangelion manga, which is an anime series I love, and I've never really thought about checking out the manga, but I was like, for 30p and it's in perfect condition, I will. And then just to round it out, I also found in that charity shop If I Was Your Girl, which is not a book I probably would have bought, but because it was so cheap and it was in the offer, I just picked it up anyway. Like, it's a book I want to read, but maybe not a book I would have bought at full price. So this worked for me just to get it, to try it out. So that is, I guess, if I put them all together. But yeah, I guess that was my book haul for the weekend. Unexpectedly, these 3 at full price and then these 3 at the bottom of 30p. So yeah, that is my book haul. Okay, so excuse the bad lighting, but I've just come in from work and it is evening, so we're having to deal with evening light. But I finished The Forrest Grimm, and I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought the ending actually really ramped it up and there was some really good twists. I really liked where the ending went. It wasn't quite enough to bring it up to a 4-star for me. I'm still keeping it at about 3, but I genuinely enjoyed it. I sadly just had no interest really in the romance. I just found it kind of boring, and I could kind of zoned out every time there was a romance scene. But I enjoyed all the fantasy elements. Henny as a character, who was the third character who was in it quite a lot, was kind of frustrating, but I understood where she was coming from. Overall, quite liked it. It's not going to be my favourite fairy tale adaptation ever, but it was decent and I had a good time with it. So that is the last novel for this vlog. So I've just got my manga series now. So I've got my bookmark in, ready to start, and it's only 3 volumes long, so I anticipate it being quite a quick read, and that will officially be the last books I read for this vlog. So let's hope this is better than all the other books I've read so far. We'll see. Going to a Stitch cafe today. Dressed for the part with my buddy in tow. So this is going to be the final vlog update because I have indeed finished Dictatorial Grimoire. It was only 3 volumes and I only had the first one physically, so I read the other 2 digitally on my tablet instead. And overall, I really did enjoy this. The first volume is the strongest and I gave that a 4, and I've got to say, unfortunately, 2 and 3 were just not as good. I rated them both a 3, I think, in the end, and I think it suffered from having a dissatisfying ending, and it kind of wasted time in the 3rd volume doing like this we're going on a school trip thing for like half the volume, which didn't really have a lot really to kind of progress the plot, to be honest, other than that the humans of the group like kind of came over some of their differences with one another. And yeah, the ending was just kind of disappointing because it was just so fast. Like, I like what the final antagonist was. I thought that was a really good surprise, and that it wasn't what you thought it was going to be, but it was just so rushed at the end, and I feel like it could have really benefited from having another volume to have really developed the antagonist characters more, so that you kind of understood them better and you understood what the final thing that one of them did had the weight behind it. So yeah, overall I really like this series though. The art is gorgeous, I really like the characters, and it's really funny as well. Yeah, overall really liked it. It's just a shame that it kind of got a bit meh as it went on. So that is all of the books that I'm reading for this fairy tale blog then. So let me just grab them all that I have physically, at least. I think I have most of them physically at this point, and we'll just say this is all 3 volumes and we'll do a little ranking. One final update as well before I do my final impressions of the last books. I went to the library the other day and I got a little book haul. So I'm trying to be better at not taking out loads of novels from the library because I feel like I just don't get through them. But I was picking up my book club book for the month and I just thought I'd have a look to see what graphic novels and manga are there. There isn't always a lot of selection, unfortunately, in my library, but I actually managed to find some. And there's some that have been on my list to read for quite a while, and I think they're just good things to like slot in between novels sometimes, so I'm going to get around to these at some point over the next couple of months. So I did of course pick up my book club book, which is Translation State by Anne Leckie. It's a sci-fi space opera about looking for this missing translator. Sounds really interesting, really excited to read it. Apparently one person from the book club has already finished it and loved it. And I then picked up these. So I have 2 manga, actually. It's hard to find first volumes of manga in my library, which is a shame. But they actually had volume 1 and volume 2 of My Brother's Husband, which is something I've really been wanting to look into for a while. So excited to read this. They're like really interesting like bind-ups as well. I've never really seen like manga sort of, I guess they're hardbacks, which I don't really see too often in manga, to be honest. So, oh, they're really nice. They've got like these like really nice like, I'll get it out, just cover off. Yeah, that's really cute. So that is volume 2. Let me see if it'll, no, it won't let me take off volume 1 because of the dust jacket, but yeah, super cute. This is basically about a man who goes to visit his dead husband's Japanese family, and I don't think they knew that he was gay and had a husband. I think this is their daughter, but I could be wrong. It might actually be this, like his sister. Here we go. When a cuddly Canadian comes to call Yaichi, a single Japanese dad, okay, so it's this guy's daughter, is forced to confront his painful past. With his young daughter kinda leading the way, he gradually rethinks his assumptions about what makes a family. So yeah, really cute. I'm hoping it'll be a good read. And then I picked up 2 small graphic novels. This one I picked up just because I thought it looked really interesting. It's called Over My Dead Body, and it's just about like witchcraft and stuff, and I thought the art was like really colourful and stuff. I feel like I've heard of this before, but goodness knows what from. Maybe it's actually like a novelization adaptation or something, I'm not sure, but it sounds really interesting. But yeah, basically it is about a girl who goes to a school for witchcraft, and there is a mystery that she is looking into about a girl's disappearance. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty good. I feel like this is just a 1 volume kind of thing. I don't see any reference to like there being another volume, but it says another school year begins on the back, so I'm just like, is there another one? But there's like no indicator to suggest, so I think this is just a 1 volume kind of thing. And the final thing I got, which I'm so excited to finally read, is the Tea Dragon Society. This is just cozy, cute, and something I've been dying to read for a while. Like, I love the art style, it's super cute. So yeah, some things I'm going to be reading later on, and you'll probably hear about them in other videos. Okay, so I think this is the final ranking of how these books line up for me. So at the very bottom, unfortunately, is Remesa. Just didn't really click with me, unfortunately. Cursed is second, just because it was such a mix of short stories, and whilst there were some really good ones in there, there were a lot that were just kind of bland and didn't really click with me, so that puts it kind of lower. Forest Grimm, did enjoy it, but it didn't really sort of resonate with me as much as I wanted to the point that it would be something that I would carry on, but I had a good time with it. School for Good and Evil, found the plot to be kind of too convoluted, and I didn't really enjoy what some of the things it was trying to say in terms of its messages, but I did really like it. I found it really funny, and I enjoyed sort of like the characters and what it was trying to do generally, apart from when the messages were mixed. Then Dictatorial Grimoire, really had a good time with this one. It's just a shame that it kind of fell off at the end. And finally, at the very top, we have Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher, which I guess is the best book of this vlog. So yeah, it's kind of funny how that worked out. I didn't get any 5 stars, which is a shame. I would have loved to have found some new favourites from this, but I think we have Thornhedge as a new favourite, and the rest of these sadly didn't work out. So I think I'm definitely gonna have to do a part 2 of this in future. To try and read some of those books that I didn't end up getting around to, and maybe try some other ones that maybe people recommend to me. So yeah, that is it for this vlog, and I'm going to hand back over to Princess Kyla. So that is the end of this vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want me to do this again, if you want me to try and read some more like fairy tale retellings, watch some more fairy tale retelling movies or something. And until next time, stay safe, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!